Life management. Go. And we need to decorate the hallways. Let's make sure there is money in the budget for that. What is the value of the different opinions? If you were the leader of this team, how would you reconcile the differences of opinions? Using content from the chapter, at the end of the day. A. How would you determine who gets their way? B. How could you empower minority perspectives? And C. How could you ensure that every voice gets heard? (167). Chapter 9. Project Management. This chapter will present a number of tools that can aid in the process of effective project management. The first priority is to establish a collaborative vision and set of goals for teams to pursue. Once goals are defined, teams must identify specific tasks that need to be completed in order to reach those goals. This requires members to negotiate their roles and embrace tasks and responsibilities that contribute to the collective purpose of the team. Two project management approaches are presented in this chapter, the DP and focus models. Both models operate in a team environment to systematically use data and data analysis to solve problems. When used diligently, these structured strategies lead to efficient and systematic team collaboration. Case 9.1, Google. A founder's letter from Google, Incorporated in 2004 states, "Serving our end users is at the heart of what we do and remains our number one priority. www.google.com/competition/." That core value is evident in everything Google, Incorporated does to meet its users' needs, and to keep the company on the frontier of the human or technology interface. In organizations such as Google, well-defined values and a clear vision influence the level of commitment and quality of work that is done at every level of the company. Google was designed to be a collaborative environment embedded in a flat organization, rather than hierarchical. With its single-minded vision, Google has been able to focus on its core business of technology innovation. One of the best examples of Google's innovation-focused, customer-oriented, solutions-minded, collaborative approach to projects is 20% Time, a program that has been in place since the company's inception. Google employees are essentially given one day each week to work on projects that are novel, experimental, and even outside the primary areas of each employee's expertise. Teams are then formed with people who are passionate about similar concepts, ideas, and objectives regardless of whether they are in the same department or work group. While 20% of the week is spent on these projects by design, it is important to recognize that the culture of the company is what drives this value system that has produced technological successes like Gmail and Google Docs. But an innovative culture does not negate the need for structure and planning. Projects must be documented and managed to justify the time employees are investing in them. They must show tangible results. Thus, autonomy is balanced with accountability. Working in teams. 168. Google's culture also highlights an incredible work ethic, healthy competition, and a passion for problem-solving that permeates the organization. All of these qualities help to form the community's bond and point everyone toward the same goal, to serve the end user. How they do it, though, is the interesting part. According to online resource TechCrunch, Google's corporate engine runs on innovation. Innovation, therefore, is the purpose and the driver of both its project management and 20% Time program. From the smaller, faster teams brought together by 20% Time to the larger, more traditional teams that work on the higher-profile projects that are driving the business results, Google is pacing the industry in output. That pace, it seems, combined with the innovative core that lies at the heart of the company, is helping Google stay true to its number one priority. In that regard, Google's project management strategy is as it should be at every company, a force that ties every member of the corporate community to the primary organizational mission while defining efficient, timely, valuable, and relevant strategies that produce results. Case study discussion questions. 1. What are your reactions to this case? 2. How do you see Google's 20% time program fitting within its business model? How can Google justify allowing its employees to spend that much time away from their core functions? 3. What project management fundamentals do you think are most important to the execution of 20% time? 4. What competitive advantages does Google possess that might make the project management approach to 20% time impossible at other companies? The most effective teams and organizations have a clear vision of what they want to accomplish. They know where they are going and have a comprehensive strategy or plan to get there. Project management tools help teams stay on track and make progress, no matter how large or complex the project may be. The starting point of any project, though, is to define exactly what needs to get done. Teams need a clear vision and concrete set of goals before they can formulate a plan that will produce results. Vision and purpose. Findings from a group of researchers at Stanford University suggest that successful groups and organizations are purpose-driven and goal-oriented. In 1988, Jim Collins and his colleagues began to identify characteristics associated with visionary, successful organizations and documented their findings in the book Built to Last, Collins and Porras, 2002. They began by identifying exemplary and stable organizations through a survey sent out to 700 CEOs of companies on the Fortune 500 and Incorporated 500 lists. Each CEO was prompted to nominate up to 5 companies perceived as highly visionary. From there, researchers compiled a list of the top 18 exemplary organizations founded before 1950. The longevity. Chapter 9 Project Management. 169 of the companies gave them a long-standing track record to analyze. However, the real power of their research stems from the 18 comparable companies that were included in the study. Each truly great company was paired with a good company from the same industry that fared well over the years but was not able to break into the ranks of greatness. For example, $1 of stock invested in the general stock market from 1926 to 1990 would yield a return of $415. The comparison companies yielded a return of $955, while the visionary companies yielded a return of $6,356. Collins and his colleagues looked at every facet of both sets of organizations, including their beginnings, strengths, challenges, and evolution. From over 60,000 pages of data, they identified several fundamental principles that seemed to explain why the visionary organizations were significantly outperforming the good companies, which were used as a control group in the study. In 17 out of 18 cases, the visionary companies had a sense of mission and an understanding of their core purpose that went well beyond mere revenue production or shareholder equity. For example, the pharmaceutical company Merck defines one of its core values as improving human life and benefiting humanity. Its mission statement, which is published on the company's website, echoes the sentiment of founder George Merck II that its first priority is its customers, followed by its employees, and then its investors. Importantly, Merck has taken actions that align with its core values, such as developing and donating significant quantities of the medication medicine to treat people suffering from river blindness, a painful disease that affects over 1 million people in third-world countries. These types of decisions that are consistent with the corporate mission and core values are what distinguish a great company from a good company. Similar to visionary organizations, the most successful teams are also defined by a clear understanding of where they are going as well as a shared commitment for members to do what it takes to get there. Hackman, 2002, Hushcho, 2004, Klein, 1999, Locke and Latham, 1990, 2002, O'Leary Kelly, Martocchio, and Frank, 1994, Senga, 1990. Group members must know why the group exists, and what they are trying to accomplish. Otherwise, goal ambiguity can produce frustration, apathy, cynicism, and even hostility toward the leader. Because of this, leaders have the challenging task of not only helping their groups define clear and measurable goals, but also inspiring commitment to those goals. Well-defined and manageable goals keep groups on task, and focused while strengthening each member's commitment to the group. Arrow, Poole, Henry, Whelan, and Moreland, 2004, Lee, Sheldon, and Turbin, 2003. While visionary companies are fiercely committed to preserving their mission and core values, they are also still open to stimulating growth and change. They regularly engage in performance assessment and strategic planning in order to pursue progress. Having a clear sense of mission and purpose provides direction and focuses effort, no matter how large the group. Locke and Latham, 2002. In other words, that which works for visionary organizations holds true for small groups and individuals as well. No matter what size the group is, Collins states, there's absolutely no reason why you can't articulate a core ideology for your own work group, department, or division. Collins and Porras, 2002, page 78. Goals. Specific goals emerge from the mission or purpose of a group. They provide direction for the group but are different from the mission, which is broader, and from the strategies. Working in teams. 170. Which are narrower. Goals also provide motivation, and can have a powerful effect on team performance. Kleingeld, Van Mierlo, and Arends, 2011. According to Michael Dell, 1999, CEO and founder of Dell Computers, mobilize your people around a common goal. Help them feel a part of something genuine, special, and important, and you inspire real passion and loyalty. Page 119. Goals that are challenging and meaningful inspire teams to perform at their highest levels. Hackman, 2002, Kelly, Martocchio, and Frank, 1994, Klein, Wesson, Hollenbeck, and Alge, 1999. For example, the mission of a university cafeteria may be as broad as providing a quality dining experience for faculty and students, but its goals will be more specific. It might strive for an increase in student satisfaction survey ratings by a certain number of percentage points. Specific strategies for achieving that goal might include adapting menus, changing food suppliers, or improving customer service. If team members buy into the goal, they will do anything and everything to improve the quality of their product. The SMART acronym is a good way to evaluate the quality and clarity of goal statements. In order to be effective, goals must be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bounded. Goals that are specific are clear and unambiguous. For example, a community service organization that has formed a task force or committee to increase membership is working with a goal that is too vague to provide meaningful direction and motivation. Increasing membership by 30% is more specific but still lacks criteria against which it can be measured. Goals that are measurable are defined in such a way that allows for concrete and objective assessment as to whether or not the goal has been reached. For example, increase membership by 30% over last year's membership allows for direct and ongoing evaluation of the goal. Attainable goals are benchmarks that require a stretch by team members but that are still within the team's reach. Goals that are too ambitious risk not being taken seriously. Meanwhile, insufficiently challenging goals may fail to engage and capture the interest of a team. As a general rule, a sufficiently challenging goal offers a 50-50 chance of success. Hackman, 2002. Goals that are relevant are aligned with the capacity and responsibility of the group. For example, a team focused on increasing the membership of a community service organization would not be given a fundraising goal, since that was not a part of its original charge. Instead, increasing the number of likes on the organization's Facebook page is a goal more consistent with its task. Finally, goals need to be time-bounded. They need to be tied to specific deadlines and schedules. In the case of the membership task force, its goal might be to increase the total number of members on the mailing list by 15% over the previous year by December 31st. The visionary companies Collins studied did not just have concrete goals and well-defined strategies, they had big, hairy, audacious goals, which the researchers referred to as BHAGs. Collins and his colleagues were intrigued that ambitious, even outlandish, goals were able to generate immense team spirit and intense, focused effort. BHAGs work best when they are clear. Ch9 Project Management. 171. Compelling and engaging to the point of grabbing people in the gut. For example, under the leadership of legendary CEO Jack Welch, General Electric had the following goal: to become number one or number two in every market we serve and revolutionize this company to have the speed and agility of a small enterprise. This is contrasted with the vague, ambiguous, and more modest goals of Westinghouse, the comparison company, of total quality, market leadership, technology-driven, global, focused growth, and diversified as stated in its 1989 annual report, Collins and Porras, 2002, page 95. Walmart is an example of how an initially small and seemingly insignificant group of people led by Sam Walton dreamed big and unleashed an international economic force. In 1945, Walton owned a single five-and-dime store, but his goal was to become the best, most profitable variety store in Arkansas within 5 years. Walton and Huey, 1992, page 22. This was a large goal for a small-scale retailer. But that was typical of the culture Walton created. He set high goals, and consistently reached them. By 1977, Walmart was a $1 bill lion company. In 1990, Walton set a goal of doubling the number of stores the company owned within 10 years. He achieved that goal as well. Sam Walton was a modest man from Arkansas who dreamed big and created one of the most powerful companies in the world, Fishman, 2006. Big goals should not be viewed as arrogant, nor should they necessarily be considered naive regarding the obstacles and challenges standing in their way. One thing is clear, though: they are ambitious. Collins and his team of researchers analyzed the BHAGs of visionary companies, and identified the following characteristics. A BHAG is clear and requires no additional explanation. It is plainly understandable and calls people to commitment and action. A BHAG falls well outside the comfort zone. It requires great effort, and even a little luck. A BHAG becomes a focal point in the organization. The goal, itself, is more motivating than leaders or charismatic personalities. A BHAG is consistent with the organization's core purpose and values. A BHAG is not limited to the organization as a whole, but can be set for individuals, departments, and teams. For example, Nordstrom, a clothing retailer known for its customer service, sets BHAGs throughout the company down to regional, store, department, and individual levels. Ambitious goal setting works across organizational levels to mobilize the efforts of individuals and teams. By most measures of success such as year-over-year revenue growth, sustained profitability, human capital turnover rates, and stock price, Nordstrom continues to achieve its goals. A final example of a famous BHAG is President John F. Kennedy's address to a joint session of Congress on May 25, 1961, where he challenged the United States to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. The Soviet Union had launched the first satellite, Sputnik, in 1957 and then put the first man, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, into space in 1961. America had lost the first 2 rounds of important space-related milestones. Thus, the space race became an important symbol of the Cold War between the United States and the working in teams. 172. Soviets. Kennedy's address was urgent and compelling. Some thought he was far too optimistic, as the dream far outstripped the technology of the day. However, great resources, energy, and effort went into the space program, and on July 20, 1969, Apollo 11's commander, Neil Armstrong, stepped out of the lunar module onto the moon's surface, and proclaimed, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." While competition was clearly the catalyst for innovation and achievement, exploration of outer space is no longer used as an arena for demonstrating technological prowess. In the wake of budget cutbacks and reduced funding, countries have learned to work together to achieve common goals. One such example is the International Space Station, in which 5 countries joined forces to do research in outer space. In order to maximize resources, competition has given way to collaboration, the topic of the next section. Collaborative goal setting. Over the last few decades, organizations have been moving away from traditional, top-down authority structures in favor of giving groups more autonomy. Teams that have the freedom to partially define their own goals, and to create the strategy that will achieve them tend to have higher levels of commitment among their members. Cohen and Bailey, 1997. Of course, most groups do not have complete autonomy. The executive leadership team of a national sorority might not be able to change the colors of its Greek letters, and a store employee at Starbucks is not going to be able to add new items to the store's menu. But allowing team members to have some input can influence both the quantity and quality of the team's output. Empowering teams by giving them some decision-making latitude does not remove their responsibility or accountability to the organization within which they operate. Groups can be both self-directed and accountable. Bishop and Scott, 2000. Talented and competent people are more committed when they have some influence over their own goals and strategies. Porter, Hollenbeck, Ilgen, Alice, West, and Moon, 2003. For example, a team that is responsible for an organization's website development might not respond too favorably to being told by a group of non-technical executives what the website should look like and how they should go about the task. The group is more likely to be invested in the project if it is given a slightly different charge, such as, the executive board wants a new website, and they suggest that it look like this, but they would like you to present a few alternatives for them to consider. In the first option, the goal of a new website was well defined by a prototype that was given to the project group. In the second, the group was given some structure and direction along with the opportunity to design and create its own solution. In addition to greater levels of commitment, the creative potential of a team expands when more freedom is given with regard to output, direction, and the general spectrum of solutions. Organizations and workgroups have various ways of encouraging ownership of goals. 3M, one of the 18 visionary companies identified by the Stanford researchers, has a long-standing tradition of encouraging its technical people to spend up to 15% of their time on projects of their choosing. This is one example of the culture at 3M that stimulates innovation and experimentation. In 1980, one of those innovative teams created Post-it notes, a concept originally created by a company employee to help keep scrap paper bookmarks from falling out of his church hymnal. Ch9 Project Management. 173. In another example that took place a number of decades ago, Ford Motor Company was interested in engaging factory workers in the mission of the company, so it designed employee involvement programs that placed workers in key roles on quality improvement teams. The collaboration between management and labor was successful because union workers felt respected and involved in strategic organizational decisions. Philip Caldwell, CEO of Ford at the time, was even made an honorary member of the union upon his retirement, an unprecedented move that demonstrated the quality of their collaboration. Collins and Porras, 2002. In contrast to companies like 3M and Ford Motor, organizations that fail to empower their employees often perform poorly. Collins and the Stanford research team noticed that there was even an atmosphere of fear and intimidation in the comparison companies. Chase Manhattan Bank was micromanaged by David Rockefeller in the 1960s and 1970s, using a heavy-handed management approach that killed innovation and intrinsic motivation. The computer manufacturer Burroughs Corporation publicly humiliated managers for failures and mistakes. Collins and Porras, 2002, page 166. Even though Burroughs had a technological lead over IBM in the 1960s, senior executives managed the organization with a very rigid, top-down philosophy that diminished the opportunity for employees to make decisions and act on their own. Eventually, the company merged with Sperry Corporation to form Unisys and currently plays a relatively small role in the field of technology. Another one-time technological giant, Texas Instruments, T, was also very autocratic and did not trust or empower employees. As a result, T lost its position as one of the most respected companies in America and suffered significant losses. Collins and Porras, 2002, Page 166. Allowing talented people the freedom and autonomy to make decisions and take responsibility for their own work has tremendous benefits for teams and organizations. As research and history have shown repeatedly, when team members are empowered and given choices, they tend to be more engaged and committed to the goals of the team, to their teammates, and to the organization as a whole. Project management. Work groups, as opposed to social groups, are designed to accomplish a goal, task, or project. After the mission of the group is understood, and some measure of cohesion and reasonable working relationships are in place, a group must devise a strategic plan for accomplishing its mission. It is one thing to know where you are going, but quite another to know how to get there. A well-defined roadmap or strategy provides the direction and specific task assignments necessary to achieve the goal. As the strategy is formulated and executed, a unique group structure will develop, defining the norms, roles, and culture as described in the previous chapter. This section will present two models of project management that mobilize teams and coordinate the work of members. DP model. Project management and problem-solving strategies contain many similar components. First, groups need an accurate understanding of the goal or problem to be solved. Then, working in teams. 174. They can devise a comprehensive plan for achieving the desired results. Next comes an efficient execution of that plan, and, finally, a systematic evaluation of the results. These components describing the basic structure of a task management or problem-solving strategy will be referred to by the acronym DP. Define the project. Analyze the problem or task. Plan the solution or strategy. Execute the plan. Evaluate the outcome. This model describes how groups can systematically and effectively work toward long-term solutions. Keep in mind that this is not a purely linear model, as real-world problems are often complex, ambiguous, and ill-structured. While the general flow of the project moves from top to bottom, there are often times when a group will need to return to a previous stage. Figure 9.1 DP Model of Project Management. During the planning phase, it is not uncommon to need more analysis. Similarly, during execution, more planning is often needed as well. Define. Analyze. Execute. Evaluate. Plan. Chapter 9 Project Management. 175. Define the project or goal. The first task of a project relates directly to the previous section. Effective teams are guided by SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bounded. Groups must know where they are going before they can figure out the best way to get there. Marksberry, Bussell, and Clevinger, 2011. Because this has already been covered at length, let's move to application. In a class on small group behavior at Vanderbilt University, students are put into teams of 12 or 13 students to experience firsthand the concepts that are presented in lecture. The following project, which was completed over the course of a semester, demonstrates how students applied the DP model. Request for proposal. Vanderbilt University is currently designing a freshman commons on the Peabody College campus. According to a university spokesperson, the freshman commons will be a one-year living/learning environment that includes all the features of a residential college, such as resident faculty and staff, music rooms, study rooms, and a dining hall. The new dining center will be a centerpiece of student life at Peabody. Your task is to construct a proposal for meal times, special programs, and general operations that will accomplish the following goals. A. Create a cohesive community for incoming students. B. Ease the transition to college. And C. Facilitate academic development. 2 weeks from today, your group will make a 25-minute PowerPoint presentation that outlines your proposal. Please include graphs or charts of empirical research and collected data that support your recommendations. Also, you will be expected to submit a 2-page executive briefing of your proposal. Presentations will be evaluated by faculty members, graduate assistants, and the Director of Dining Services using the following criteria. A. Persuasiveness of the presentation. B. Effective use of empirical research and collected data, and C. Level of preparation and professionalism. Typical of many projects and tasks given to groups, an external entity defines the work to be completed, which in this case came from the course instructor. After the assignment was presented to students, they asked a number of questions about what the proposal should include and how it would be evaluated, that is what it would take to get an A. They sought further clarification of the project until they were reasonably sure that they understood what was being asked of them. Assignments like these leave much room for interpretation and are typical of the ill-structured problems groups face in the workplace. Motivation and work ethic is a typical challenge that student teams face throughout the semester. As is the case with many class projects, students receive a collective grade on their work, which can be a source of contention. High achievers strive for nothing less than A, while other students are quite content with a B or C. Therefore, from the start there is the potential for conflict over personal goals as they relate to the overall group performance. Since member motivation and effort are often related to the relative. Working in teams. 176. Importance of the grade. Project leaders have to find a way to engage their colleagues in order to establish equitable levels of effort. Creating competition among groups is a common way for leaders to get members invested in the success of a team. However, this has the potential of creating in-group or out-group bias, overly positive attitudes about one's own group in conjunction with overly negative attitudes about other groups, which can lead to hostility toward other groups. Another way leaders and high achievers ensure success is by doing most of the work themselves. Ironically, this encourages less motivated members to become even more passive and creates resentment on the part of overworked students. These issues are perennial problems within work groups, and often create conflict and tensions. In the Dining Center project, the highest performing teams took the time to clarify their performance goals through open discussion about standards and commitment. Members discussed their expectations, and what they were willing and able to contribute to achieve their goals. This kind of open, direct, and mature dialogue allows members to verbalize unspoken assumptions and understand others' perspectives. The process itself helps engage members, build cohesion, and define member expectations and roles. Analyze the problem or task. Problems and projects do not exist in a vacuum. There is always a context, history, and system within which they operate. Organizational learning expert Peter Senge, 1990, suggests that today's problems emerge from yesterday's solutions. In other words, current problems are often the unintended results of past attempts to solve other problems. For example, when Nissan Motor Company needed to improve cash flow in the early 1990s, it cut back on product development. While money was saved in the short term, it was losing market share and revenue a decade later due to an outdated product line. Ghost, 2002. When problems or projects are not understood in a larger systemic context, solutions have a tendency to generate short-term gains that can turn into long-term liabilities. Before an effective plan of action can be created and executed, teams must thoroughly understand all of the issues related to their project. Unfortunately, members often jump to solution planning before completely understanding and analyzing the problem. Comprehensive analysis requires an accurate assessment of the current situation or state of affairs. Senge, 1990, describes this creative tension between the current reality and ideal state as a catalyst for innovative problem-solving and planning. An optimal solution that bridges the gap between those extremes is dependent upon a thorough understanding of the starting point or current reality. Thus, the first stage in effective problem-solving is to restrain from brainstorming possible solutions and, instead, have the discipline to collect a broad range and meaningful depth of information about the problem. While past experiences, and personal opinions frequently influence group discussions. Teams benefit when they have actual data upon which to design, execute, and evaluate plans. Evidence-based decisions require a substantial amount of data from which to derive effective solutions. A well-formulated action plan is built upon concrete information and critical dialogue. Postmus, Spears, and Sahamier, 2001. An analytic tool that can help teams understand the dynamics underlying a problem is a force field analysis. It identifies the forces working toward goal attainment as well as those forces working against it. Kaiser, 1994, Robson, 2002. First, the group must have a Chapter 9 Project Management. 177. Clear understanding of the goal or ideal state. Then, members must define the current reality in relation to that goal. For every goal or ideal state, there are forces and resources that support success and forces that hinder it. A force field analysis gives a visual representation of the forces working for and against the team. It is helpful to display this graph on a whiteboard or a computer projector, and then write or type the actual forces on the arrows as members identify them. The 4 questions associated with a force field analysis are these. 1. Where are we now? Current reality? 2. Where are we going? Goal? 3. What will help us reach the goal? 4. What is hindering us from making progress and reaching the goal? Once the supporting and hindering forces have been identified, the group can decide which of the forces to focus on. In theory, if supporting forces are strengthened and hindering forces are removed, the current reality will move closer toward the goal. Some of the hindering forces are hard realities and cannot be changed, others are not significant enough to address. With the help of a skilled facilitator, the team can decide how to strengthen or remove various forces. Figure 9.2 Force Field Analysis. Supporting forces. Current reality. Ideal state or goal. Hindering forces. Working in teams. 178. For example, a thorough analysis of the present dining situation helped students understand whether or not the 3 goals in the request for proposal were currently being met, and to what degree. Teams needed to understand how the goals, creating a cohesive community for incoming students, facilitating the transition to college, and promoting academic development, were defined, measured, and implemented in the lives of college students. In addition, students acquired information about the concept of residential colleges within which the new dining center was to be embedded. Before teams could proceed with a specific proposal, they needed to collect and analyze a significant amount of data. Furthermore, projects like this, which attempt to change the campus culture, will have political forces working for and against them. Thus, a strong proposal would need to address the political issues related to the project. Furthermore, since other universities have dealt with the same issues, the most thorough proposals included examples of best practices in their analysis. Once students thoroughly understood the project and obstacles, they were ready to create a proposal and plan the presentation. Plan the solution or strategy. A thorough understanding of both the existing reality and the ideal state has the potential to unleash the power of creative problem solving. During the planning stage, high-performing teams allow a sufficient amount of time to brainstorm possible ideas or solutions to the problem while withholding judgment as those ideas are being generated. Then once all the ideas are out on the table, they can be systematically critiqued and/or combined. Kramer, Fleming, and Menace, 2001. Contrary to popular belief, a good brainstorming session is first measured by the quantity of ideas generated versus the quality of those ideas. Evaluating the quality of various options comes next. Team members should be encouraged to participate without self-screening or censoring their thoughts, as the most creative ideas are often withheld out of fear of what others might think. In addition, it is helpful for teams to appoint a recorder or scribe to keep track of all the ideas that are generated so that none are lost. Ideas can be presented and discussed in any number of formats. In some groups, members shout out ideas spontaneously. In other groups, the leader solicits ideas from each member in a systematic way in order to give everyone an opportunity to contribute. Another useful method requires members to write one idea per index card or post-it note for as many ideas as they can generate. Cards are then collected or posted, and a master list is created. Kaiser, 1994. Once a comprehensive list of possible options has been generated, critical discussion can commence. Teams must evaluate the ideas that have been generated with critical dialogue and discussion. For larger lists, ideas can be grouped together and combined, but with shorter lists, less than 15 items, ideas can be examined sequentially. Kaiser, 1994. Members might ask for clarification, give opinions, or evaluate the quality and/or viability of each of the options. At this point, some ideas may need more analysis to determine their relative worth in solving the problem or advancing the project. Another meeting might be needed to allow time for members to do additional research and report their findings. When the group has sufficiently discussed the various ideas, and has enough supporting evidence to make an informed decision, it is ready to choose the best course of action. Chapter 9 Project Management. 179. While some problems require a single solution, it is more common for groups to use a combination of ideas. Furthermore, there are a number of ways groups determine the specific components of their project plan. Decisions can be made by consensus, group vote, or by leader proclamation. Alternate approaches to group decision-making will be discussed in a later chapter. Returning to our dining center example, some teams settled on an idea before thoroughly brainstorming all of their options. In those cases, only a few ideas were shared before an influential group member endorsed a certain idea. Then, other members validated the idea, momentum built, and the group would begin dividing up the tasks and assigning responsibilities. Unless someone slowed down the process, teams would often make premature and short-sighted decisions. After teams have discussed various options and made a decision, it is time to make a plan. A work plan identifies, defines, and assigns the tasks that need to be completed by group members or subgroups. Since certain tasks are dependent on the completion of other tasks, due dates and completion schedules are formulated. After the tasks are defined, sequenced, and scheduled, group members either volunteer or are assigned to those tasks. Having the right people assigned to the right tasks is an important step in successfully completing the project. Issues of availability, motivation, and competence will influence these assignments. One particularly difficult issue is when a team member volunteers for an important assignment for which he or she is not particularly qualified. Team leaders can either guide task assignments with well-placed suggestions, or they can simply ask the team if the tasks are assigned to the right people. If there is trust and good communication in the group, the wisdom of the collective will prevail. Otherwise, the leader may need to intervene and make an executive decision. In our example, students identified the key work processes of the project and the specific tasks that needed to be completed. Some groups drew the work plan out on the classroom whiteboard, others simply verbalized it and relied on loose commitments. Of course, the more detailed and thorough the work plan, the better the outcome, in general. After the tasks were identified, students volunteered to be on one or more of the task groups based upon interest, ability, and experience. In the sample work plan below, the sequencing of tasks moves from left to right, with only the first key process, student interviews, described in detail. The information gathered from student interviews, including analyzed data in the form of charts and tables and an edited video clip, was needed by the research team to complete its task. The research group would then give its information to the group assigned to create PowerPoint slides, and the like. Working in teams. 180. Working backward from the date of the presentation, teams were able to create work schedules that included due dates for each individual task. Interdependencies were accounted for as members identified what they needed from one another in order to complete their own task. Those who participate in the planning process typically feel more committed to the solution and to its implementation. Their involvement in the process also enhances their understanding of what needs to be done, and thus facilitates quality implementation. Execute the plan. The best decision, solution, or plan is only as good as its implementation, and successful implementation is anything but a guarantee. Organizations spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year hiring consultants to develop strategies and make recommendations that never get fully implemented. In fact, research by Bicker, Husleit, and Ulrich, 2001, suggests that the ability to execute strategy is the top non-financial variable that analysts consider in determining a company's stock value. Once work tasks have been assigned and deadlines have been established, the group is ready to execute its plan. Some tasks will be done by solitary members, others will be done in subgroups. Tasks are often underestimated in terms of difficulty and time required, and as a result, members can become frustrated when their work is dependent on the work of others. The most effective groups closely monitor this process and manage the interdependencies of tasks and subgroups. Major task. Subtasks. Person responsible. Due date. Student interviews. Design interviews. John. 9/14. Create questions. Bob. 9/14. Select participants. Sue. 9/16. Acquire video equipment. Ben. 9/17. Conduct interviews. Mary. 9/22. Analyze data. John. 9/25. Research. Presentation script. Executive summary. PowerPoint slides. Table 9.1 Work breakdown structure. Chapter 9 Project Management. 181. During the execution phase, a well-defined communication structure that reports on both the progress and the inevitable problems is invaluable. Status meetings allow members to update the team on their own tasks and, in turn, hear how the project is developing in other areas. Typically, individuals and task groups report A. the progress they've made on specific tasks, B. any problems or obstacles they may have encountered, and C. whether or not they are still on schedule. The answers to these questions will determine whether resources need to be reallocated to meet deadlines, whether deadlines need to be adjusted, or whether more planning or analysis is needed. Team members may be tempted to minimize their difficulties and report their progress in overly positive terms in order to appear competent and save face. The reporting of problems should not be a source of failure or embarrassment, or they will likely go underground only to resurface later, and often at the most inopportune times. When problems are openly acknowledged and discussed proactively, they can be effectively resolved through the collective wisdom of the group. Ranieri, 2004. During the execution phase of the project, issues related to the quality of team members' contributions and their work ethic are common. Members of cohesive groups feel loyalty toward their colleagues and are motivated to do their part for the team. But this is not always the case. As discussed in Chapter 2, social loafing occurs when certain members rely upon the efforts of others and minimize their own contribution. Social loafing not only diminishes group morale but also has a negative impact on group performance. Mulvey and Klein, 1998. In addition, certain members might not have the same standards of excellence as their teammates, and don't complete their tasks to the highest standards. The most effective teams monitor their progress on a collective and individual level and confront members who are not fulfilling their responsibilities. Ch9, 2002, 2005. Indeed, mutual accountability is one of the hallmarks of high-performance teams, Katzenbach and Smith, 2005. Regarding the Dining Center project, the concept of mutual accountability was fairly difficult for students to embrace. After creating a plan, students volunteered for various tasks and committed to target dates. High-performing teams had regular status meetings and email updates. Unfortunately, some groups neglected to set up adequate reporting structures to keep everyone on task and aware of the group's progress. When individuals or subgroups failed to meet deadlines, they left other members impatiently waiting for the information they needed to complete their own tasks. When these bottlenecks occurred, tempers would often flare. For example, the PowerPoint subgroup was dependent on the student interview and research subgroups for the content on their slides. Obviously, the presentation group was not able to write the presentation script until it knew what content was covered in the PowerPoint slides. Each missed deadline created a larger backlog. Inevitably, a few members were stuck at the 11th hour throwing the last-minute details together for a number of the teams. This created frustration and resentment, both of which could have been avoided with better communication and regular status updates. Evaluate the outcome. The final step in the DPE model is evaluation. After defining project goals, analyzing relevant data, and creating and executing work plans, the group is ready to evaluate the results. As previously stated, a well-defined project goal or problem statement will have clear and measurable criteria from which to evaluate success. Therefore, the evaluation. Working in teams. 182. Phase compares the project outcomes to the initial criteria for success. It is also helpful to evaluate the relative strengths and weaknesses of the team, and how they might have improved its results. In the case of the Dining Center project, criteria for evaluation were given to students when they received the assignment. After the projects were completed, students received multiple evaluation sheets from instructors and teaching assistants with feedback on their presented tie-ins and a grade for the project. The criteria for evaluation, though specified in the assignment, were still somewhat subjective. Evaluators tried to provide as much concrete evidence as possible to support their judgments. For example, they might have observed that charts and graphs in the PowerPoint presentation were not clearly labeled or that the method of data sampling was not clearly communicated by the speakers. While some students were dissatisfied with their grade, they still learned much from the feedback. Students were also asked to assess their own team's preparation and presentation of the project. This helped members identify the strengths and weaknesses of the team. Here is a sample of some of those questions. What part of the project are you most proud of? How did the group go about making decisions? What part of the preparation process created unfinished business, that is tension that hasn't been resolved? What needs to happen about that issue? Who were the unsung heroes for this presentation? Who seemed to work the hardest? Who were the most influential members in the process? If you were giving awards, which team members would win the following categories? You can have more than one per person per category. The most encouraging of others? The most creative? The most fun to work with? The most reliable? The most helpful standard setters? The best presenters of information? The best technical experts? What could have been done to improve the presentation? During a debriefing session, both the external feedback and self-assessments were shared and discussed. As Argyris, 1994, suggests, most workers have sophisticated defense mechanisms that prevent them from learning meaningful lessons. A competent facilitator can help individuals move past their tendency to blame others, take responsibility for their own shortcomings, and hold themselves and others accountable to standards of excellence. Cannon and Witherspoon, 2005. Ch9 Project Management. 183. Focus Model. The focus model is another commonly used framework that helps teams systematically solve problems and manage projects. Unlike the DPE model, which includes the implementation of proposed solutions, the focus model only makes recommendations. For that reason, it is commonly used by management consulting teams to make recommendations to clients. Thus, the FOCUS acronym represents an effective step-by-step process for identifying and solving problems within organizations. Similar to the DPE model, it emphasizes the importance of data collection and analysis in solving problems. Frame the problem, project, or task. Organize the team. Collect data. Understand the data. Solve the problem. Essentially, focus is a strong and helpful approach to developing and proposing a solution to an identified problem or task. If the project requires execution, implementation, or follow-through, the focus model would require an implementation strategy under a new project charter designed to overcome the challenges inherent in realizing and institutionalizing the proposed solutions identified by the team. Frame the problem. The first step in the focus model is to frame the problem by getting together as a team in order to understand the task at hand. What is the goal? What is the challenge? What are the potential barriers to success? What are the constraints to consider? Gap analyses, the current state versus the ideal state, needs assessments, and requests for proposal, RFPs, are good tools to use during this primary stage, because they facilitate the team's understanding of what needs to be done in order to successfully complete the project. They can also help clarify the obstacles that stand in the way of success. Project charters also help lend scope and scale to the problem, project, or task. Essentially, they are a clear charge to the team. To effectively frame the problem, a team typically engages in an initial discussion to gain a clear understanding between the client and the team. What does the client want? What does the client need? Are those the same or different? If they're different, what will your team have to do in order to effectively educate and empower the client? The key to the first step in solving the problem is inquiry. The fundamental step of successful project management is to begin by getting a comprehensive understanding of the task at hand. Once the team has established its purpose and understands its task, the leader can begin to organize the assets on the team. Organize the team. In organizing the team, the top priorities are maximizing the team's resources and creating an efficient team structure. A project team is similar to a finely tuned sports team comprised of experts or specialists at various positions or tasks. Thus, tasks should be assigned. Working in teams. 184. According to skill and experience. This assumes that the team has been formed to ensure that there is a diversity of skill and specialization. Maximizing the team's human resources is productive for the team in 3 specific ways. First, it leverages the natural talents and inclinations of the team members, raising morale and improving the quality of the product. Second, it shortens the timeline between assignment and production because there is no additional learning curve for each individual in his or her task. And finally, it facilitates team chemistry by fortifying trust and interdependence among the team members. Together, these 3 points drive value and quality of product while improving team efficiency and general rapport. The second step in organizing the team is creating an efficient structure from which to operate. This includes discussing ground rules and norms that set clear expectations for member behavior. As we described in the previous chapter, leaders should thoughtfully plan the launch in a way that builds a solid infrastructure and increases cohesion. The team also needs to decide when, where, and how often it will meet. It is very helpful if agendas are prepared before those meetings, and that minutes are kept in order to ensure efficiency. The organized step is often overlooked and undervalued. However, prioritizing this step leads to a higher quality product and a more consistent performance. Collect data. Once the team has assigned responsibilities and created an operational structure, it is ready to collect and clarify the data. In this step, Team members work to gain as much insight as possible into the issues and forces relevant to the task. While it is easy to respond with short-sighted opinions and premature judgments, the best teams are disciplined and wait to see the data. With the increasingly abundant access to information through technology, this step has become shorter and more efficient. Groups can take advantage of web searches, published research, and volumes of online interviews, forums, and first-person accessibility. One very real challenge that exists in the collect step is duration. How much time and effort should be allocated for this step? Because there is often a wealth of information available in today's world, teams can get lost in a never-ending search for more data. In addition to problems related to quantity, not all data are of equal quality. High-performing groups attempt to acquire the freshest, most robust information available. However, a common mistake many groups make is that, because information is so readily accessible, they don't spend the necessary time making sure that the data they collect are the most relevant, up-to-date, and reliable pieces of information available. Once team members are sure they have gathered the best information, they are then ready to analyze it. Understand the data. Having gathered the data, the team is now positioned to organize and analyze the information. Understanding the data is a process that relies upon concrete evidence and empirical data to gain clarity about a problem and point the team toward the best solution. The amount of information can be overwhelming, and many teams have become immobilized in the morass of numbers, charts, and graphs. Furthermore, there is rarely a situation in which all the data point to the same conclusion, so it only follows that the team must engage in a fair amount of critical dialogue, inquiry, and consensus building. What? Chapter 9 Project Management 185 happens to the team's motivation and direction in the face of conflicting or divergent data findings. Does this create crisis or encourage innovation? The answers are dependent upon the ability of the leader to guide the team through ambiguity. Leaders must remain vigilant in requiring their team members to rely upon hard data, and to report the data as data, rather than infusing their reports with normative, value-laden, or emotional language. Leaders can ask themselves and their team the following questions. Are we taking an objective stance on the information we retrieved? If so, what do the data suggest? If not, what are we missing? Do we need to delve deeper into any specific area? If we move beyond the next logical step, where might we find ourselves? Are there any pitfalls to account for, given the data at our disposal? Repercussions and popularity aside, what is the real conclusion here? Honest answers to these questions will naturally lead to the final step of the focus model, arriving at a solution to the problem, task, or assignment. Solve the problem. If executed properly, the focus model should deliver solutions that are both self-evident and evidence-based. However, the conclusion obviously cannot present itself to the client group. And this is what makes the final step so complex. How does a group propose a foreign or novel solution to an otherwise skeptical client? American journalist and social critic H.L. Mencken once said, "For every problem, there is a solution that is simple, compelling, and wrong." Team leaders must be aware of the challenges related to preparing and presenting their solution to a client, whether that client is a professor, a paying customer, a manager, or the executive board of a company. As is obvious from the preceding 4 steps, the focus model builds on itself through the course of the project. The quality of the solution is dependent upon each preceding step, which creates a systematic approach that increases the chances for an excellent outcome. Given the right amount of time, teams can actually walk backward through the model to find the point at which the process disintegrated, fix it, and then progress once. Working in teams. 186. Again to the best possible solution. But how does a team know it has reached the best possible solution? Strong and inclusive leadership, slavish dedication to research and data gathering, as well as robust analysis, creative thinking, and member commitment are all fundamental contributors to the best possible solutions. Before submitting the final solution, the team will have ensured that it maximized benefit to the client group, that it offered the greatest progress for the lowest cost, and that it aligned with the identity, purpose, mission, and vision of the client group. Here again, if the solution yielded from the focus model process is unacceptable to the client, the team can easily backtrack and analyze its steps to determine where it went awry. In that sense, it is the agility of the model that makes it so useful. Leadership in action. College graduates are often surprised by how much of their professional lives involve working and performing in teams. Many of our former students have reported that the majority of their work during the first 2 years in the workplace is performed in a team environment. Because of this, it is important to become comfortable with at least one model of project management before entering an internship or full-time job. Project management is essentially a structure that affords groups and individuals the discipline required for timely and consistent performance across tasks and conditions. In one student's email, he specifically mentioned that the most productive teams had a set of well-defined, shared goals, that is, what do we want to accomplish, specific task assignments, who will do what and by when, predetermined meeting frequency, where, when, and how often will we meet, official protocols, how do we make the best decisions? What are our ground rules? What happens if we violate a protocol, and formal leadership structures, who is doing what? Who is in charge of what? He was pleased that the material we had discussed at length in class was reinforced by his employer. Not surprisingly, the business world continues to prove that team success requires a comprehensive and well-defined project plan. Effective project management can help navigate the ambiguity that is often present in complex team projects, and can reduce the propensity toward inefficient team operation. Models such as DPIR focus clearly define individual assignments and timelines for delivery of products, and include a built-in system of accountability. Deliberate planning and structured problem-solving ultimately lead to a foundation of safety, trust, confidence, and consistency that allows teams to manage projects effectively. In order to carry this out, leaders need a clear, consistent, and candid communication style so members understand their roles and responsibilities to the project. Granted, projects are often constrained by resources such as time, money, and human capital. Many readers will believe that there is just not enough time to go through these steps as a group plans the project. However, as experience has proven, and history reveals, the groups that actually take this time to plan and intentionally manage their project, thereby establishing the groundwork for their engagement together, are the ones that will ultimately succeed. Kirkman and Rosen, 1999. As a project leader in action, the key. Chapter 9 Project Management. 187. Takeaway is to stay committed to a structured process of planning and managing the project even when members resist. Teams will often jump to solutions prematurely without really understanding the task or problem, and without finding evidence to guide the discovery of the best solution. In addition, members are quick to haphazardly assign responsibilities without any accountability structure or consideration of finding the best person for each task. Without a well-defined and systematic approach, managing any project will be unnecessarily frustrating and potentially exhausting. Key terms. Specific 170, measurable 170, attainable 170, relevant 170. Time-bounded 170, in-group/out-group bias 176, force field analysis 176, work plan 179. Discussion questions. 1. What challenges might a leader face if members do not share a clear understanding of the mission or purpose of the team? 2. Define SMART and BHAG goals, and discuss their similarities and differences. 3. What are the benefits and drawbacks of giving teams more autonomy and freedom when defining goals? 4. Describe social loafing and identify specific things that a team leader can do to prevent it. 5. Explain the importance of self-assessment and feedback when working in a group. 6. Compare and contrast the DP model of project management with the focus model of project management. 7. The focus model of project management highlights the importance of organizing the team. What are some of the specific things that need to be done to ensure an organized effort? Group activities. Exercise 9.1 Creating a viral video. After forming groups of 5 to 7 students, you are to create a 2 to 4 minute long viral video that demonstrates the disasters that can happen on teams. Use the DP model as a framework for carrying out this project. 1. Define. How would you define this task? Describe the characteristics of a successful viral video. Working in teams. 188. 2. Analyze. What are the typical problems that occur in teams? What kinds of situations would resonate most with viewers? 3. Plan. Create a plan to make your video. Create an outline of the script, assign roles, decide where you will film it, and determine what equipment you will need. 4. Execute. Record the video, and do any editing that you might have the capability to do. 5. Evaluate. Play the video for the class, and get feedback from others about the quality of your product. Exercise 9.2 The Marshmallow Challenge. Break into groups of 4 to design and build a freestanding structure using as much or as little of the following materials: 20 sticks of spaghetti, 3 feet of kite string, 3 feet of masking tape, and 1 marshmallow. The entire marshmallow has to sit on top of your structure to be successful. You have 18 minutes to accomplish this task. The goal is to build the tallest freestanding structure from the top surface of the table to the top of the marshmallow. When you have completed the activity, go to www.marshmallowchallenge.com for a debriefing. Case 9.2, Soap and Spare Time. You are trying to figure out a way to make some extra spending money at school. One day, it dawns on you that there